Former Epic Games executives suggest that Amazon might be tanking GW deliberately with wokeness in order to purchase the company on the cheap. Now, I usually don't reach for the conspiracy theories in these things, but, well, GW and Amazon are in a little bit of a unique position here that I do think bears further exploration, even though this is a more unlikely explanation than the simple one, which is that Amazon is a very woke company, and so is pushing wokeness onto Games Workshop, which is a company that is desperately trying to become very woke. But still, there are some interesting points to cover here. This is the coverage from That Park Place, which talks about a tweet from Alexei Savchenko, saying, Warhammer, you know, if I was Amazon, I would continue applying pressure with TV series for law changes, dismantle GW's relationship with the fanbase, drop their price, and just buy them pennies on a dollar, and then launch TV faithful to the law, just saying. And they then go on to recap the Adeptus Custodes debacle with the introduction of female custodies just a couple of weeks ago, with all of the stuff that's been going on up until then, including the stock drop of 5%, which is not necessarily indicative of anything. It could simply just be a little bit of a trading malice. Entirely possible. And also, of course, the departure of, what was it, Rachel Tung, I think? Yep, Rachel Tung, the chief executive officer, who not only left the company, but also dumped 2/3 of her stocks on the market, which is definitely not a vote of confidence by any stretch of the imagination. But to return to this idea of Amazon attempting to tank GW. Right, so the female Custodes thing, they released a faction focus on the Custodes just the other day, or today I think actually, yeah, where they don't mention female Custodes at all, not in the slightest. In fact, they actually bring up the Sisters of Silence, which is a rarity from Games Workshop part, as they seem to want to try and forget that they even exist, which, well, the female Custodes thing will certainly do its fair share of doing as well. But again, it's weird how GW is doing this. On the one hand, this was a change that they clearly needed to do due to their own morality, as I've explained in long-winded videos previously. They were forced to admit that they could not find a law change, and thus they simply had to lie about it. Yet, the company then has not actually made any sort of marketing push around this whatsoever. Again, no mention of female Custodes in the recent release, and clearly rather expensive and big budget trailer thing for the faction. And then, to top that off, there was also this. Please, we need women heads for Custodes. If we hear of any plans, we'll be sure to share them. I pointed this out previously, but Games Workshop has made it very clear on repeated occasions that they are first and foremost a plastic toy manufacturing company, not a lore company. And yet this plastic toy manufacturing company drops an enormous declaration without any plans whatsoever to even try to take advantage of it. It's really weird, and clearly, I think, speaks to a currently ongoing civil war within Games Workshop, where there are both wokeist forces, primarily in the community team, and the writers attempting to introduce this nonsense, whilst counter forces are pointing out all of the countless examples of where this didn't work, as a reference for why you probably shouldn't. But as Amazon, well, here's the interesting thing. Now again, normally, this level of skullduggery I would consider to be deeply unlikely from major corporations, because most of the time they're busy with other things rather than, trying to slowly infiltrate a company and push wokeness on them. But again, Amazon is a very, very woke corporation already. Pushing wokeness into Games Workshop isn't going to be some matter of silent ruse to tank their stocks. It's simply going to be an aspect of working with Amazon. This is the same company that bricked their own AI, which they'd spent God only knows how many millions, if not billions, considering it's Amazon dollars, on developing, just because they insisted on teaching it DEI nonsense until the damn thing started deleting itself. Yes, some wokeism will definitely come along with any sort of contact with Amazon. And there is also the idea here, bearing in mind, this is a bit of a unique opportunity for Amazon, right? Amazon has been trying desperately to launch its own entertainment media, its own like Amazon Prime Entertainment thing, Amazon Studios, right? And they haven't really been succeeding. They've had some, at least decent successes here and there that haven't been complete failures, but the failures far outweigh them, and their biggest bet, and the surefire success, the Rings of Power, has become a watchword for absolute garbage. I mean, the studio has taken a battering ever since then, with layoffs and restrictions in their own budget, with countless rumors suggesting that the Rings of Power crew are being downscaled and forced off the sets wherever they can, and being harassed via administrative means, by constantly auditing their expenses, for example. Now, whether or that is true, God only knows, but considering the sheer amount of hassle and headache they have caused for Amazon's upper management when it comes to explaining how $5 billion simply just disappeared to their investors, I wouldn't be surprised if it was true. So, Amazon is then looking at a company which has a great undersold IP, underutilized, as GW themselves says, and it is a British institution on the rise. It is, not to be too hyperbolic here, but it is in a position to be the new Disney, a new entertainment giant that has taken something relatively small like fairy tales with Disney princesses, and they are now in a position to build on this due to a general demand for this sort of entertainment. Now, if you're Amazon and you're struggling to get that sort of entertainment, and you see DW, a by comparison small company that will absolutely gush all over themselves for even the opportunity to be on a phone call with an Amazon executive, again, these people aren't stupid. It wouldn't surprise me at all if one of them just raised their hand carefully and said, "We could find a way to exploit this." Because, here's the thing, the second part of this plan is the most unlikely one, right? Drop the price, buy them pennies on the dollars, and then launch TV faithful to the law. That's the big problem. That's the kind of, like, cut them off at the knees point where Amazon aren't going to be able to complete the plan, because Amazon is not going to make entertainment that is true to the law. They are simply incapable of doing so, as the Rings of Power pounded home with all the force of a meteoric impact. Now, you could argue that maybe Amazon has learned its lesson from that, but oh yeah, likely. I don't think so. It's going to take quite a few more years of flopping before Amazon learns that one, and so I don't really lend a whole lot of credence to the idea that this is some sort of long-term master plan, but they could, by almost sheer undiluted accident, stumble into a situation where they have created both the environmental effects for an easy takeover of GW, and also the ability to sweep in and take advantage of the debilitation that they enforce on GW. Because again, I do pseudo-believe that, I don't think that Amazon demanded these changes. I don't think the relationship is at quite that point, but I do believe that they may have hinted or indicated, or GW may even have taken these actions on their own as an attempt to send up a little virtue signal flare in the hope that Amazon will pick up on it and go back to the negotiation table with a bit more bon vivant, eh? Because, again, it's so weird that this hasn't apparently been planned out at all. No big announcement, no new models, no grand reveals, no nothing. You knew this would cause an internet shitstorm of unparalleled proportions. You knew you would get an absolute assload of flack for it. But you also know that about 2% of your audience are actually wokeists. So why not at least attempt to recuperate some element of your losses by marketing as hard as you can to this new and diverse audience you are clearly attempting to gain access to by hammering this point home. By going, oh yeah, here's the female heads, here are the models. We made a special shield captain. Look at her. She's got all that cool glamour and stance and everything. Wouldn't you like to purchase this? Unless, I guess GW decided that the amount of financial support they might gain from this would be so minuscule that they couldn't even justify creating a few sculpts for them or models. And bear you in mind, creating a new model line, even just like variant heads or a single new model, is a relatively large amount of work, as they need, of course, designers, they need to develop the idea, they need to create the molds, etc. It is a relatively large investment for GW every time they make a new model. And considering the size of the wokest audience within Warhammer 40,000 of all things, yeah, I can definitely see why somebody might launch the argument that this is never going to pay for itself. Which kind of then also justifies the idea that it might have been done on Amazon's demand, because if they understand that this can't actually earn money in plastic format, then that does sort of kind of hint at that maybe there is a greater gift out there, some larger reward, like an Amazon deal, for example, that might be the motivating factor instead. Again, reaching a little bit, but far from impossible. And Amazon, well, again, I don't think they're pushing wokeness with any sort of like malicious agenda. Well, more malicious than wokeism is any day of the week anyways. But it will be an inevitable consequence of working alongside Amazon. And if they can then just so happen to benefit of giving Henry Cavill full creative responsibility after the first TV show flops completely, even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? We'll have to wait and see, but it's an intriguing idea that perhaps attributes a little bit more planning to the parts in question, whilst also pointing out some fairly decent little tangential elemental effects that might come into play here. We'll see. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.